Be with you. Fear, being afraid of something, having a restraint tied to your heart. It happens all the time. I had the chance the other night to be part of be part of a program at our church. They did a Broadway show celebration, and in our church the congregations are kind of geographic, and then there's a collection of congregations, and occasionally that collection together is a larger congregation, and they'll do things on a larger basis, and it makes it a little bit more fun. So we did that the other day, and this was a Broadway celebration, and you could do whatever you wanted, some Broadway song to be, to just put on some musicals. Some really good ones were done. There were some songs from Frozen and from Frozen 2 and from Encanto and some other Disney musicals, and they were quite good. And I was asked to do a number. I hadn't been really participating, but someone asked me to play the piano, and I've accompanied for decades, and so I said yes. We rehearsed a number of times, and then right about a week before the show, the lady running it said she got a bunch of cancellations and wanted to know if I would do a song, would sing. And so I said yes, I would, and I decided to do a song for a man of La Mancha, The Impossible Dream. Now, you might know that. You might not, depends on how old you are, but it's to dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star, and it goes on. So I decided I would do that, and I looked up some YouTube vids to see, find an arrangement that I liked, and I found a Luther Vandross one that I really liked it. I enjoyed it, and so the lady that asked me is also quite a skilled accompanist, and we ended up doing this song, and I was grateful for the chance, because what I decided to do, instead of just doing the song, was to talk a little bit first, to take like 1 minute, 60 seconds, and talk about fear. Talk about how it holds us back. Fear of not being enough, fear of being laughed at, fear of being inadequate, fear of failing, fear of success. Fear, and the funny thing about fear is it's all in our heads. Like, you can't go buy it on the shelf, you don't find it in the library, it doesn't come in an Amazon box and all the rest. So I started thinking that was about 3 weeks ago, I started thinking about the cost of fear. What does fear cost me? What has it cost me? And, there's funny things, like a guy or a gal doesn't ask someone out or get to know someone because they're afraid they'll be rejected. I have a client that doesn't talk to prospects because he says, well, I'm sure I'm going to be wasting their time and they got more important things to do. And, that's just a story. Maybe they want to talk and maybe they don't, but there's always a gentle, kind approach that's both respectful and inquisitive to solve those problems. But that fear has cost him business. It has cost untold relationships. It has ruined and sent to the graveyard so many dreams. I want you to take a second, think just in your own life in the last 2 years of COVID. What has fear cost you? I don't know. Maybe nothing. I know something it's cost me in the last 10 years. 15 years ago, I had a dramatic divine intervention that changed my life. I went completely away from the career that I was in, and I launched on a whole new path. And that story of the divine intervention and all of the stuff that happened, incredible, impossible kinds of things like only the divine can orchestrate, that's written in a book called Tightrope of Depression, which is on Amazon if you want to read about my life journey and some incredible divine interventions that can only be explained that way. But anyway, since that time, the last 15 years, that happened in August of 2007, so in a couple of months it'll be 15 years, I've been building a coaching practice. And yet in the process of building this coaching practice, fear has gotten in my way. Fear of talking to people, fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough, fear of not helping them with some result in the context of coaching, Just fear, 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 fear. So I want you to think about what it's cost you. A very specific thing that I'm about to put a complete end to that fear has cost me is fear of doing something wrong, fear of ridicule, fear of rejection, fear of lack of acceptance. That might be the same thing. For solo singing. Now, this is a funny story. I've been a musician all my life. I started playing the piano, I can't remember when. I don't remember not being able to read music. So that means I learned about the same time I learned to read when I was 4 or 5 or something. I've performed in professional groups and played the piano and played the trumpet and played the tuba, all kinds of crazy things, clarinet, French horn, some other instruments. And professionally, I played the trumpet, piano, and I've done vocal work. I've even done vocal work in a group that has 3 #1 Billboard charting albums. I was in the classical genre, and it was in a choir. And so I haven't done a lot of solo work. So somehow this fear that was part of the whole depression thing I suffered with has kept me from spreading the message that I have, a message of love for you, of acceptance, of coaching, of growth, of opportunity. I had an opportunity this morning to have a coaching call, a last coaching call in a current engagement with a client. And, this client is planning on coming back to coach later, but they're taking a break right now. And that can be a month, it can be a year. Who knows? We'll see. But the question he asked me was, I feel like I've got my backpack full and I'm going into the desert to launch on my own. And tell me everything I've done well. Tell me what you see that's missing, what to watch out for. And it was kind of like a quest story, right? And so we had that conversation. And just in the conversation, it came up to notice that one of the biggest things that I felt to caution him about was fear of giving in to the fear of rejection, of worrying about what others think. I have a funny name for that. I call it WITOT, W-I-T-O-T, what I think others think. And the joke that I have is that kills more people than COVID ever will because it destroys dreams by the millions. Fear. What I think others think. Anyway, so the reason I'm telling you the story about the music is because I finished 2 albums in the last couple of years, 22 new songs. I'm halfway through a 3rd album. Why does that matter? Well, I haven't performed these publicly. One of the albums is up on all the platforms, Spotify, Apple, and all the rest, along with several other albums I've done in the past. And one will be up in a few days, and the 3rd album is about half done, and it'll be up probably by March. But what I've decided to do in terms of this fear issue, this thing, I'm going to fail or something, is I'm going to start doing performances. And so one of the things you're going to see, and you may say, oh no, I don't want to see it, or you may be curious, or you may not even care, I don't know. But I'm going to start doing performances. Now, the reason this is important to me is because the songs come from the books that I wrote. I wrote a book called Tightrope of Depression, and it talks about my journey from darkness, despair, and death, including attempted suicide, to light, love, and life. The transition and change that happened around that 2007 divine intervention. And so the first album is about songs that tell the story from that first book, Tightrope of Depression. Then I wrote a sequel called Down from the Gallows because I wanted to stay with the rope theme, right? And then I thought, if I did an album for the first one, I got to do an album for this one. So I did that too. And this album's titled Promise and Power. That has 11 songs also, and I don't know why I picked 11, I just did. And that's done too, and I need to, and we'll get it up in the next few days. The 3rd book will be done in February, and the album, it's at the same time, or February, March of next year. Anyway, the reason I'm sharing all this is because fear has kept me from performing publicly. I'm afraid I'll do it wrong. I'm afraid somebody will laugh or whatever. Now, I actually did 2 concerts on Zoom live a few months ago, introducing some of the songs, but they weren't live streamed like this. There were probably 15 or 20 people that came, and it was good, and it worked, and they liked it, et cetera, et cetera. But it still hasn't eliminated this fear. So I've told you this big, long story because I want you to understand that even someone who's written 16 books, most of them #1 international bestsellers, someone who's charted #1 on Billboard, blah, 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 still deals with this feeling of personal rejection. We all fear, judgment, and rejection. And that isn't anything new, you know that. But the question for me and for you here now is, what are you going to do with that? How long will you allow fear to limit your voice in the world? I, for one, want to hear you. One of the favorite parts of my coaching practice is helping people write books. I have a book that I wrote about that called The Story Arc. And I just finished a 12-week class with several people, helping them write their book. I'm going to start another one in a few weeks to help people who have stories, have the courage, understand the process, and to get that done so they can share their message and power with the world. It's one of my favorite things to do. And so I do that, and yet I still have this trepidation about this one particular thing. Yet I know in my heart, like we all do sometimes, that my voice is one of my greatest tools. And that includes not just my speaking or narrating or any other voice, but my singing, my songs. And even though I know that concern, and you know the drill, because I know you know right what I'm thinking about and talking about, and you're thinking of what's in your way right now, of something you think you probably wanted to, should, oughta, all the words, try or do or create or give. So I challenge you to think about the cost of fear. Because right now in the world, with the war going on, with the pandemic trying to wind down and up, with travel starting again, with the recession, with inflation, with baby formula shortages, with supply chain issues, threats we haven't faced in recent years, decades even, there is more opportunity to have fear get in the way right now than there has been any time in my lifetime, and I'm 66. I don't remember a set of circumstances on the world stage, even in the Cold War, maybe the Cuban Missile Crisis, when we thought, terror was that close. So I challenge you, and I challenge me, to use your voice. There is no cause to fear. I want to hear your voice. I don't want fear to cost me anymore or cost you anymore. So I invite you with all my love and heart to share everything you have to share, to do the thing you think you should do. Get the right help. Get a coach. Get a container. Get the guidance you need so that fear doesn't get in the way of anything that you feel you want to share with the world. One of the things that I finally did now is I created a course called Live Without Fear. I have a free piece of that. If you want it, go to livewithoutfear.ca, because I'm in Canada, right? livewithoutfear.ca. And there's a free vid there that'll tell you about this whole process of learning to live without fear. Because what I've also discovered is it's not required. Fear is not mandatory. It shows up and you can deal with it. We'll see you tomorrow.